All right, so since we'll be talking about e-commerce in Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific, one of the things that a lot of companies are really struggling with is how do you grow traffic to your e-commerce website? So I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that have been working for either you or some of your clients? Maybe we start off with Simon.
Sure. I'm actually going to, let's say, do the opposite of answering the question because I'll talk instead of websites. I'll talk about the dominant marketplaces, Shopee and Lazada. I think the rates vary a bit from country to country, but they have, I would say, anywhere between 60 and 90% of the organized e-commerce GMV for the various SEA countries. So they are, in a sense, more relevant for a total sales capture perspective than individual websites. And for those, I would say that the big sort of new tool in the toolbox, and a thing that is still working, is large brands and retailers should really move a larger percentage of their marketing spend from Facebook and Google onto the search and discovery ad tools of those platforms. Interestingly, in my work with large clients and also my consulting work, I've seen that the challenger brands, the smaller web native brands, have been very fast to make that switch just because the cost of the ads is artificially low to create, I would imagine, traction for the products on behalf of the platforms. But the larger brands are slow. And I realized that a big reason for that is because most of their media spend is handled through agencies, and those agencies just don't know how to spend money on Shopee and Lazada. So I would say in 2022, I think if I only really work with these large brands, I would say for those, my first question would always be, is there something to be done about shifting where the money is spent away from Facebook in particular?
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up question, and I'd love to hear Remus's thoughts as well, too. So one of the challenges I hear a larger brands say if they're promoting their products or services on those particular products that they lose some of the brand equity. So for example, if you're a Tiffany's or you're a premium brand, then obviously you have a lot in terms of your website, your branding and so on. But if you're putting it on a Shopee or Lazada, then you're just a slave to their UI UX and their branding. So what would you say to folks like that who are on the edge or kind of hesitant about moving over to some of these platforms?
No, I would completely agree with them. I honestly think that Lazada and Shopee are pretty terrible channels long term for brands with any meaningful service or prestige differentiation. But the market is what it is today. If you're talking about Tiffany or Dior, if somebody's selling diamonds or whatever, yes, then there are other avenues. But if you look at beauty, for example, which is the category that I know the best, Estee Lauder and L'Oreal have put their prestige brands on Lazada and even in some cases Shopee a long time ago because that's where the users are. I think there's a whole different, very interesting discussion there about what that means for how the market might develop in the next coming years. I think there will be a real sick where others are sagging. I think some of the leaders there will find out ways of making direct to consumer work. But no, I have no sort of rebuttal to that because I completely agree. It is very undifferentiated. It's very hard to create a beautifully branded experience on either of those platforms.
Thanks, Simon. Appreciate you sharing that. Remus, I'd love to get your thoughts. What are some of the things that you've seen working, or maybe yourself or some of your clients, when it comes to increasing traffic? It could be on third-party platforms like Simon mentioned, or it could be on their own websites.
Yeah, so I'd probably look at well, from experience, I would have to agree, particularly in Southeast Asia, or larger part of Asia, if you include China, the difference that I see in Asia compared to the US, to Europe, is really the presence of these marketplaces. If I talk to my previous colleagues from US or Europe, they it takes a while for them to understand the dynamics of how Shopee, how Lazada, or in a bigger picture, how the likes of Tmall, Lazada, Alibaba works, because they don't have that. And I think, to Simon's point, a huge part of the untapped advantage working with these guys is that they sit on tons of data. And it's going to come at a cost, but then done, the returns will actually be much, much better, exponential multiples of you just investing into Facebook and maybe Google even. Because the trouble I personally see with investing in or grabbing traffic in Facebook is it does not go straight into your storefront, right? So yes, you're able to get impressions, you're able to get eyeballs, but there's less certainty of them hitting that checkout button as opposed to Lazada and Shopee and leveraging the traffic that they already bring in. So that being said, though, Shopee and Lazada, I would have to agree that if I am very precious on my brand equity, they're not the best platforms because you're quite constrained to what they can do from a technical standpoint and also from their internal policies of what you can change. Because it's going to be a battle of, do we promote my brand or the Lazada or the Shopee brand? So what I would have to my thought around, and also from my experience working with brands, I think two other effective platforms or two effective approaches is one, look understanding where the shopper of your brand is, and then engaging them even before they go online. And why I say this, so for example, if we work with diaper brands, you're working with mothers, right? First time parents. I don't know about you guys, being a first time parent, your first child, you budget, unless you're in intense budget constraint, you would actually spend to, so they are very open to be influenced. What's the best kind of diapers? What's the best kind of cream? And they will hear all of that, not on shopping platforms. So you would have to go where they would be going. So in this sense, it's a bit of the offline to online. You go to hospitals, you go to clinic, right? And then that's where you engage them. That's where you tap your influencers, understanding the influencers that can really get them sticky to your brand. And with categories like diapers, if it works for parents, it works. I will not move because I will not risk my evening sleep for something that may not work. And then my second purchase, I'd go online to look at, okay, is there better deals? But I would already have a captive brand in mind. So I think depending on the category, I would suggest you'd have to understand what the profile of your target shopper is, and then where is it that the first touch point is. That's one. And then the second one is, so that's one, online to offline. And then the second one is, you'd also have to look at, if you're a challenger brand in a, let's say, a mature category or a less mature category, what other brand or other partnerships can you strike so that you can build that relevance within a high penetration basket? So for example, if I'm talking about, I want to have organic milk creamer, I can't sell myself like that, right? But if I go partner with Nespresso, Nescafe online, they have very good partners online, that I strike that partnership, get their current pool of shoppers into my brand, and then once they're in, uh, there are a lot of tools that I can use. Vouchers, I get their information, get them into subscription, because category like coffee, right? I would, particularly for coffee drinkers, if you look at Perk Coffee or Flash Coffee, you would have all those, their loyalty programs, and just build on the lifetime value. So I think your point is correct. How do we get them first into the door? And once there, how do we get them sticky? For me, it really boils down to understanding how your shoppers or how your consumers engage, and where do they engage with your category, where there's less noise and less distraction or less competition.
That's a very good point. So if I think about it from, let's say you sell jeans, for example, you sell premium jeans, partnering with a sneaker company, for example, as a way to co-market and get some of theirs, because you figure if someone's buying cool jeans, they're also buying cool sneakers and stuff like that, because it just makes sense. So you're leveraging both of those audiences. I think is really smart. And on the first point, I can definitely attest to the first one. Having two kids, that's where I found out about most of my baby brands, was they gave it to us at the hospital, and so I've been using it since. So really practical points that I can attest to both of those.
And just a point on the jeans, right? I think you bring up a good point, particularly if I'm selling premium jeans. I won't go mainstream where most of the brands would have their own website or on Shopee and Lazada. I'd actually, maybe if I'd invest in getting key influencers, there's a lot of new personal shopping sites that's coming in. If I can strike a partnership there and then get into that list, then that would be key for me. So I think one other aspect of getting a wider shopper base is really also get to know how you leverage key influencers and even live stream. If I think it was last year where TikTok came up with 818 with their own shopping festival where everything becomes fun. So I think these platforms are right now underutilized or under leveraged for most brands. And to Simon's point, I think it's also where a lot of brands are looking the proven and tested, but then by the time that they jump on it, it's proven and tested, then it becomes very, I would say, lack of better term, commoditized. So I think it's also the spirit of trying to experiment, trying to try out things. If it works, if not, then let's also invest on it as a learning and instead of seeing it as a profit dream. And I think to Simon's point earlier, that's to me what differentiates small digital native brands compared to the big brands.
Yeah, it's a good point. And when you talk about key influencers, this is something I'm trying to figure out as well too, because I polled one of my students. I went them through a website and they had photos from real people, and then they had celebrities and quasi influencers. And I said, which one has a bigger impact on your purchase decision? And most of them said the influencers. So I thought it may be counterintuitive that they'd be related to people more like them. But I guess this was a premium brand. So I think it still goes back to that aspirational view and of why they're purchasing that particular brand. So I think it's very relevant to those kind of brands. The other thing I want to get your thoughts on, because this is something a lot of organizations really struggle with, is conversions. So let's say they're able to get some of the traffic, but if you look at conversion rates across most e-commerce websites, whether it's on mobile or desktop, they're incredibly low. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you have seen working in this space? Simon?
Yeah, I think I would love to share two, one short and then one with a bit more nuance. The first short one is, as much as possible, try to drive mobile traffic to an app rather than to a mobile website. Obviously, this only works at a certain scale where the fixed costs and startup costs of creating an app make sense. But the conversion rate delta between those two types of experiences is really big. Like 2-3 times conversion rate is pretty common I think as a lower end of the spectrum. So that's like a tactical place to. The other one that I'd love to speak a bit about, actually to your point about influencers. So I think one really, like, I've done lots and lots of work with influencers. It was obviously a big part of our business at Sephora, and I've been involved in influencer marketing in all sorts of ways. And I think it really works. One thing that has shifted in a big way since 10 years ago and in a sense gotten better is that many of the big commercially focused influencers now are very comfortable with affiliate payment model rather than fixed fees for engagement. And when it comes to conversions or securing sales, for me, affiliate marketing is wonderful because as long as the P&L makes sense in terms of what cut we share with the promoter, we are good to go, right? We are not really taking on a ton of risk in terms of a cash outlay for engaging anyone. And I think actually, if we look at countries like Thailand and Vietnam, when I'm looking at corporate clients that have entered particularly social commerce, so either direct to consumer, various different forms, like what I've seen a few times now is that actually a very meaningful share of that sales is coming from influencers that are on affiliate deals. And further diving down one level, what's very interesting is that the bulk of the revenue tends not to come from the affiliate networks. It comes from those partnerships that have been locked one-on-one with particularly big influencers. These are not the ones where you just sign up for some sort of an online program and see it happen. You have to sit down and negotiate a deal with them. But then I've seen instances where that's driving 70-80% of the total affiliate sales for some of these brands. So that's a strategy, or let's say a tactic, that I'm really thinking a lot about at the moment.
Yeah, as you said, that's a huge benefit because, like you said, you're not placing a lot of risk. You're sharing the risk, so to speak. So it makes sense for a lot of different brands. To your first point, driving traffic from third-party sites to mobile app. I guess the question that mobile people have is, how do you get people to maybe download the app to begin with? Because I maybe have one or two company apps that I have, and one of them is like Don Don Donkey, which is groceries, and I don't have anything else off the back of that. So what are your advice on people? I know it's beside topic, but how do you get people to even download some of these apps?
Yeah, and no, I think to be specific, what I was talking about here is if you currently have traffic to your mobile website, then place an app instead. Look, I think I can speak a bit to how Sephora thought about this, because I think it's really fascinating. And that was to like slowly make it more and more painful almost to convert on the mobile website. So having like first sort of semi-intrusive banners drop down from the top of the screen to say, why don't you download the app and get this first app transaction discount? And then slowly making that banner bigger and bigger to the point where it basically is unusable the rest of the mobile website. So I think that kind of stuff can be done best when you have robust A/B testing frameworks where you can measure that end to end rather than just seeing a bunch of drop off the mobile website. But I think at its core, what it speaks to is that apps just have, they're just easier to convert than mobile websites, particularly when it comes to the payment steps.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because you're locked in. Whereas if you're on your mobile device, it's very easy for you to jump to another site and find something else, particularly if it's a bad experience.
And the experience of typing a credit card number into a mobile browser is just always shitty, isn't it? Like, it's
Yeah.
just never really great. I don't think apps necessarily are that much better, but it's just a bit less bad. So I think there's a lot to be, to be gathered from that.
Yeah, a bit
Just to
less
build
bad. I
on
think
that,
it's a yeah.
I think the
Revis.
good thing one I think the good thing with apps is if you look at how a lot of the restaurants or QSRs are doing now, they make their apps, and I think this was started by, I think, what was it, Alibaba, and then transferred to Lazada, where they make their apps as a point of entertainment. They know that consumption on mobile or time spent on mobile has been growing, so they want to get a piece of that pie. And one way to do that is make it fun. So if you look at, I read somewhere that a couple weeks back, the if you look at the QSRs, McDonald's has their own app, KFC has their own, Pizza Hut has their own. And what they've done is online only vouchers. You can track your own points, and then some of them have already introduced games in exchange for vouchers. So I think making it interesting for people on and really addressing what do I get out of downloading an app apart from using up memory on my phone or on my mobile device. I think people are more open now because the whole thinking around value is also shifting from just straightforward, how can I spend less, to how can I get more with the money I'm spending. And I think that's also the same mindset that I've seen in response to your question, right? How do we drive conversion? If you go 4 or 5 years back, even 6 years back, a lot of online, how a lot of businesses and brands have they grown online is through giving discount vouchers, huge discounts. But now you see less and less of that because they know that price is a downward spiral. But more of, if you look at the vouchers in Lazada and Shopee now, it's no longer about get straight discount, but spend X, get discount Y, or spend this much, you get free shipping. Because they now understand that shipping was one of the barriers to really clicking on checkout. And there's a lot of abandoned carts mainly because of shipping. And I've seen brands where they've tested, hey, do I give deeper discount or do I just give free shipping vouchers? Conversion actually was better for free shipping vouchers. So I think it's really understanding what the price psyche is and also understanding what your shoppers are looking for. It could be shipping vouchers or buy this and then get X% discount. Use this voucher to get X% discount on a supplementary product, where actually the entire basket value is able to subsidize whatever discount that you have. So I think it's being creative on how you position the deals and how you make use of your promotion budgets instead of just giving a cash discount. Because for a lot of the brands, I think they're realizing a straight price discount is just not sustainable. And you can also see that in a lot of the previous online mega campaigns on Lazada and Shopee. The deals are not really comparable to what it was 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's a good point because I was going to ask you lead to the other question I had was around loyalty, but I think you bring up a very good point because if you already have razor thin margin as it is, and you're giving away discounts and people are used to that, then it has detrimental on both sides. One of which is it decreases the brand value, meaning like it cheapens it at some point, and two, people get used to that. So if they don't get it, they're pissed off. Like, why didn't I get a 10% discount? Why didn't I get a discount here? Adding on to your point, yeah, please.
Sorry, and for a from brand standpoint, there's actually a third thing that's adding to the pressure is that these e-commerce platforms are chasing after you for GMV. So the lower cost that you sell, the tougher it is to meet the GMV ambition or ask. So those are the pressures of the brands right now.
Yeah, I want to hear more about loyalty, but I think going back to your point about apps, the value adds. McDonald's obviously has their promotions and things like that, but another thing they have is because now everything is digitally, you can go ahead and order before you get to the store. So if I want to skip the queue, for example, it's a long queue, I maybe wait 20, 30 minutes. I just enter it into my app, press a button, and then I just walk in, collect it, and then go. So that has a huge impact in terms of not only pricing and things like that, but also convenience, because it's a lot more convenient than me sitting there and my kids kicking me while I'm trying to wait in line. It's an additional value add. So I think it's a very good point you brought up.
Yeah.
So I want to hear more about the loyalty and repurchase, because a lot of people say that loyalty is dead, and maybe it is to some extent, but I mean, there's got to be some things we've already talked about to improve repeat purchases? Because we talk about the cost of acquisition is so high to acquire new customers. So how do we essentially maybe upsell or cross sell? And you've already talked about that, but if there's anything else that we haven't touched on, yeah, I'd love to hear. So maybe Simon, is there anything we're missing when it comes to that?
I don't think loyalty is dead at all. I think it's just the issue. And frankly, when I work with like most large corporate style MNC brands, they have really bad loyalty programs. They're like, when you actually get to look behind the scenes and see what they invest in the programs, it tends to be like 1 or 2% of revenue. And like, then is it really a big surprise that customers are not flocking to repay you with endless loyalty? I think when you look at some retailers, and again, I'm really biased, I come from a retailer that takes loyalty incredibly seriously. It is a slightly higher percentage of revenue, but not that much. And then it is a real commitment to not giving those benefits to other people. So if you're having a markdown, just like an end of season sale, where there is a discount on a blouse or a beauty product or whatever it is, are you actually daring enough to not give random walking in off the street customers that discount, to say you have to sign up if you want to get this? So I think there's also, like, on behalf of the brands, retailers, you need to lean in and take the loyalty program seriously. But on this question around like what can drive repeat and loyalty, let's leave aside loyalty programs for a second. There's just one thing I have always really felt strongly about, and that is the power of a personalized email or a personalized phone call or something like that. People look at me like I have three eyes when I talk about this in the context of e-commerce, because the scale is quite high. But in Southeast Asia, of all places, we are in a region with wage levels that make a lot of this kind of stuff possible if you really want to. So certainly if you're in categories with a slightly higher basket size, or indeed just treating the share of your baskets that are above a certain dollar point, can you then do a personal email, or can you do a phone call to follow up and see how the purchase was? Those types of things drive huge amounts of loyalty. Who are the best at loyalty is the luxury brands. And when you look at, for example, a Louis Vuitton, a Dior, or Chanel, their actual loyalty is not a loyalty program. It is the fact that when you go and buy something and you have done it a few times, you will start to get WhatsApp messages or SMSs from the person that you spoke with. They keep the relationship with you not at the global level or the country level, but at the store level. So you're attached to a store, you're attached to a store team. It doesn't scale in the normal sense of digital marketing or whatnot, but it drives huge amounts of impact. So that's just one thing that certainly for smaller sellers, this is an advantage you have over the big guys, because they just can't handle it operationally.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And if I break that down into two different audiences, just personalization, you talked about personalization at a very high level. So for example, if you're buying Louis Vuitton on a regular basis, you're probably spending quite a decent amount. And so it makes sense to, get someone to call you personally, or maybe give you some special attention when you come down the store or on the website, things like that. So that's one side of the coin. On the other side is you have that broader kind of other side of the long tail, which is most consumers who maybe purchase maybe one or two, maybe three times a year. How can personalization, for example, come into emails? Is it more in terms of just simple things like the happy birthday or changing the name? Or is it things like personalized recommendations? Because I know if I look at like the biggest e-commerce platforms, Amazon does a really good job of like recommendations when you get on the site itself. So if I bought a book, it says, oh, hey, Joe, have you checked out this book? Or have you considered this, for example? So does that make sense in the email marketing space?
Look, I think it does. It's all about best practices nowadays, right? You need to have a product carousel. I think most of the e-commerce platforms or personalization, customer engagement platforms can spit out some sort of product recommendation. That's fine. I think I like to think a bit about some like weirder ways of getting to the growth. So one tidbit is in testing, the highest open rates I've ever gotten from an email campaign, I think, is when we did a treatment that looks like it's sent from Outlook. Because people think that it's a person who sent it to them.
Sorry, you did what?
So you take away all the template, all the corporate branding, all of this stuff, and you send the email as if you were sending it from Outlook or Gmail.
Got it.
Because suddenly people are like, oh, actually, it's a person messaging me here. Again, look, it doesn't scale. You can't do it forever. But yeah, it's more to beat my own drum of this piece around. people are just craving that human connection. And I think if you're having baskets that are over like $100, $200, it can actually make sense to do.
I agree with that. And we do a lot in terms of like B2B email marketing, things like that. And one thing we try testing is because a lot of times they'll have the big banners and that'll take up a lot of the space. And it's, yes, it may be helpful in terms of like brand recognition. But to your point, if everyone's doing the exact same thing, let's strip that away. Write text only, like you said, make it from an actual person's name. So it's Simon from whatever company and so on. Just like you said, zigging when everyone's zagging. I think that's something that a lot of companies can learn from because, like you said, that is their more personal touch to it than just the usual spam blanketed email. So very good point. Remus?
Sorry, just to build on that, I think Simon mentioned the term personalization, and I could agree more. I think the previous thinking around loyalty is look, we need all your information so that we can send you more offers, but then that defeats the purpose of if you want to build loyalty, it has to be personalized because they have to feel that you have to make the customer feel special. And if setting online aside, if you look at personalization concept has already been there even decades ago, decades before. If you look at the retail landscape right now, one of the questions that I've always come across is, look, traditional mom and pop stores are dead. It's going to be eaten by e-commerce, by modern trade. But if you go to Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, you'd see that bulk of the retail money is still on these stores because there's the personalization to a next level. You can go to neighborhoods. I open door. I go a street down. I go to our neighborhood store. I just say, hey, look, I'm back here. I need something for my next few meals. And then it's actually the store owner, because I've struck that relationship, they're the ones filling my basket. And for brands, they can use them as ambassadors because they feel ultimately personalized. Credit limit, I have that, but that aside, there's the comfort level of, hey, I will take in the recommendation of this person because he knows me, she knows me. Same thing in more urbanized centers. If you go to, why is it that Starbucks is still there? Aside from the app, aside from the equity, is that if you have your neighborhood barista, neighborhood Starbucks, you go in, hey, I'll have the usual. That saves you the pain of having to customize what your order is because you know that this person or that this store already knows what I want. And that, even though they're at more, they charge me more premium than the neighborhood coffee shop, 7-Eleven, or McDonald's, I'd still go there because I get that kind of personalization and that whole value I'm given. It just tugs on my own emotional needs. So I think loyalty, I would echo what Simon mentioned. It's not that loyalty is dead. It's just that the approach, we just have to go back and understand what is at the core of making people loyal. And it's just that they want something more personalized and don't give me a default template offering. And for brands, Lazada, Shopee, that's where I think the partnership with them for brands will work because they would know what the history, what the purchase history, what the drivers are of their target market is.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So before the kind of pandemic, I used to shop a lot at the wet markets here. And
Yeah,
you speak with the auntie and uncles and they know what kind of veggies you like, how to cut your fish and so
exactly.
on. You'll never get that at a fair price. I'll never walk up and they're like, hey, Joe, welcome back. Okay, what do you want? I think it's a very different experience. So I think to your point, that a lot of that does happen. Even when I was in China, I always shop from the local kind of shops because I felt like I knew them better. They knew me. It was just a nice experience versus you go to a chain and things like that. And it's pretty standard. I think you have a good exception to that, which is Starbucks. And maybe you have a barista that knows your name and so on, knows your preference. I guess it's a bit counterintuitive because the question people always have, and they'll still ping me for this, is how do you scale some of this stuff? And that's the tricky thing is some of this stuff you cannot scale. And it's hard to hear from many folks, but I think
Yeah,
these are some great examples.
yeah, you'll have to strike the right balance.
Exactly. Awesome, guys. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you? Things that you think people should know in the e-commerce space? Any last pieces of advice? Simon's thinking. I know he's got tons of research in mind.
No, I think if there is one, or just a cautionary tale from my own life. I recently invested in a small D2C brand in the fashion space in Europe that finally got investment around New Year's and is starting to really scale up in earnest, and is doing that through the sort of D2C playbook of just giving all the money to Facebook. And wow, it's not working. I think price levels have gone up. The game has changed. it's certainly very different from when I bought my first Facebook ads in like 2013 or something like that. So I think just if anybody's sitting out there doing a marketing plan for D2C and 80% of the money is in performance marketing, maybe reconsider. It's gotten really expensive. And even for a product with a lot of margin like ours, we get to negative unit economics very quickly. A base of it still works. The first it's a bit like drugs. So it's like the first one is free. You get really good returns on the first small investment, but the marginal returns curve is really bad. So I think it still deserves to be part of a media mix, but can't be carrying the whole load.
Yeah, very good point. Let's not get addicted. Remus.
Yeah, so for me, probably just 2 points. One is start with being targeted with who your market is. You don't really go for shotgun approach, be more of a sniper and be very focused on who your target market and shopper is, because it's going to be very tempting to go throw a wide net, but then the returns will just not be there and the ROI will never be justified. So I think really make sure who your target market is, target audience, what makes them tick, what doesn't work. And then the second point is for brands, try to at least be more agile. I think the old world of how they structure their books will no longer work. Simon mentioned how their spending is one full pool into, let's say, this brand or to their agency. I would probably advise that set aside always a testing play budget where there are new platforms. Let's put in a bit of test and learn funds on it. Let's see how the returns are. And then let's make a case on how we can scale it up. If it doesn't work, then it's a learning budget. If it works, then it's something for a test and learn for further scaling. I think having that kind of agility and nimbleness will keep brands competitive, particularly big brands, competitive with startups and digital native small brands.
Awesome. Great advice, gentlemen. Really appreciate you sharing all your insights and experience. I found it super enlightening, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you for having us.
And for everyone watching and listening to today's episode, you got to share it to anyone in e-commerce. So many practical tips. Really appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.